started. If I can ask you to take your seats, turn off your cell phones to avoid any interruptions in the program, please. And if you do not want your photo taken, please let the Surrey Board of Trade staff know. We use photos for both internal and external publications. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Anita Huberman. I'm President and CEO of the Surrey Board of Trade. And thank you so much for spending your time on this Friday afternoon focused on Surrey's development industry. Everyone, we are focused on building Surrey. We are focused on making Surrey a destination. We're going to be the largest city in British Columbia very soon. And we need economic assets. We need infrastructure assets. We need development assets. So today is all about opportunities, challenges, solutions to drive support for our workforce, for our businesses, for our cities, and to create a livable city. I'd like to acknowledge that we are on the traditional and unceded territory of our Coast Salish people, specifically the Kwantlen, Katzie, Semiahmoo, Tsawwassen, Kaikut, Coquitlam, our Inuit, and our Métis peoples. They have a profound connection to the land and water that surrounds our great city of Surrey, and they are economic partners in driving our city forward. We have the largest urban Indigenous population within British Columbia, and we are focused on Indigenous partnerships to drive our respective economies forward for today and for generations tomorrow. Events like this could not happen without sponsorship support, so a great round of applause to our co-presenting sponsor, Unity. Our lunch sponsor, the BM Group of Companies. Our supporting sponsors, Fortis BC, a round of applause, please. And the Tien Share Group of Companies. Our community sponsor is East to West Financial Corporation. Some special guests that are with us. Some are going to speak a little bit more later on, but please give a great Surrey welcome to BC's Minister of Housing, Ravi Kahlon. Our Mayor for the City of Surrey, Brenda Locke. City of Surrey Councillors, Linda Annis, Mike Bowes, and Doug Elford. And we also have the Honorary Consul General of Sri Lanka, Jim Bennett, in the house. I think he's in the house. Thank you so much for attending. I really appreciate it. So everyone, the Surrey Board of Trade, we are Surrey City Building Business Organization. We're one of the top 10 largest chambers of commerce, boards of trades in the country. There are 430 of us. And our whole mandate is to support business, bring business into the city. And if you want to learn more about the Surrey Board of Trade, get involved, become a member. If you're not, please go to our website at businessinsurrey.com. But one of the pieces that I wanted to highlight this afternoon, and we released it this morning, is our annual red tape report, our annual government red tape report. So at each of your tables are a couple of cards. If you could scan the QR code with your phone, you can get a copy of the report. The report is also on our website at businessinsurrey.com. And because I turned 50 this year, I have to use glasses now. The whole point of this red tape report is ensuring that we are working together between the private sector and public sector to ensure that we are reducing our red tape at every level of government, local, regional, provincial, and federal. So we advocate, ladies and gentlemen, for red tape reduction, which is defined as excessive bureaucracy, excessive administration to get things done, routines or rules or complexity which results in delays or unreasonable costs for businesses. So not only for the development community, but for all businesses. So our annual red tape survey gives a baseline of our members' perceptions to measure how different levels of government can have the opportunity to improve processes. And so on the screens, and of course in the full report, you will see a bit of a summary of our red tape report, but I just wanted to highlight some pieces. The impact of inflation, interest rate hikes, cost of living, and other factors on business was, of course, as you know, a significant concern to our business community. Operating costs have increased as a result of all of these pieces, eroding the bottom line. We need a coordinated effort by all levels of government to address these significant business challenges. Around clarity and accessibility of tax filing requirements and processes, the CRA continues to be a huge point of contention for businesses. All levels of government processes and requirements, our members are saying, are difficult to understand. Requirements including corporation tax, speculation and vacancy tax, PST tax, property transfer tax, paying bills at all levels of government really delays decisions. It creates administrative burden for businesses. How can we make things easier? In terms of reporting the same information to different government agencies, there's been a significant decrease, our members are saying, in reporting the same information to different levels of government over the past years, with notable exceptions illustrated in the next slide. So the Department of Fisheries, Oceans, Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure, our Ministry of Environment in BC, they require duplicate information. Long-term healthcare tools reported to both Ministry of Health and Fraser Health Authority. Childcare funding reporting to the City of Surrey or to different local governments and the Ministry of Childcare. There's a duplication of efforts there. Director disclosures are needed by the federal government and the provincial government. They need to be disclosed for the speculation tax, underused housing tax, trust agreement filings, and many others. Under regulatory requirements preventing business from making changes to grow. We all want our businesses to grow, right? So in a shocking increase, this slide shows, respondents have indicated that regulatory requirements are preventing businesses from being able to grow. In a business environment with shrinking GDP growth, high interest rates, and persistent inflation regulations reporting requirements that need to be streamlined so businesses are not having to spend hours trying to figure things out and can spend more time on business growth. And this is not only for, private sector businesses, this is also for our not-for-profit sector that run our organizations as businesses. So the impact of the employer health tax on business was another question that was featured in this red tape report. When we asked our respondents how the employer health tax impacted their business operations, 50% this year indicated no impact, while just over 36% experienced a moderate to severe impact. The increase in the EHT threshold. So we are asking government to increase the exemption threshold from $500,000 to $1.5 million for businesses that are paying this employer health tax. We asked respondents if they supported such a shift, and there was an overwhelming support to do so. Businesses indicated that the EHT, the employer's health tax, added costs, preventing them from hiring more people. Paid sick leave. Over 55% of respondents have indicated that paid sick leave legislation has had an impact to their business operations. Many businesses indicated that there's no impact. When asked to explain, the resounding reason was that the business already offers commensurate sick pay days without that need for regulation. How many sick days should be legislated? The respondents indicated 5 sick days or fewer is the preferred option, and only 18% of respondents wanted more sick days. Over 18% of respondents already provided paid sick leave. Specific regulatory reform. So this slide, ladies and gentlemen, illustrates some of the regulatory reform necessary at all levels of government. More examples are included in the full report. So again, CRA processing times. More live customer support agents are needed. Prompt payment legislation is needed. We just issued a position on that from the Surrey Board of Trade with the BC Construction Association. Underused housing tax, faster turnaround for all departments, ministries, and levels of government. Lenient zoning for childcare centers, speculation and vacancy tax alleviation. Director reporting requirements, streamlining and sharing information. So I think really conclusively what this report again is articulating is that governments need to improve and simplify their instructions, not only to you in the development community, but also to all businesses. Agencies need to share information and to ensure that there is no duplicate information requirements. So I encourage you to share the report. Of course, we shared it on our social media channels this morning, and it's all about working with the different levels of government on a coordinated approach to really be a catalyst for change, not only in Surrey, but also in British Columbia. And you're going to be hearing all about that today. So we know that the housing crisis in BC continues. But we need to ensure that we focus on the evidence. And that's why we've coalesced our expert panels for you to dialogue with. And there is going to be an opportunity for you to ask questions, and I want you to be honest. I want you to state the facts. This is a dialogue, this is a forum, and the only way to instigate and be a catalyst for change is to speak the truth. And that way we can move forward. But first, you know, an amazing, innovative developer in our city of Surrey that is transforming the paradigm of not-for-profit housing is our co-presenting sponsor, Unity. And to tell you more, please help me welcome Mr. Doug Tennant.
Thank you, Anita. And I've got 3 minutes, so I am going to invite you to QR code on the Unity package on your table. So please check that out. And also Jillian Glennie, our Director of Development, you may want to connect with her after I've finished talking. So Unity is really proud to sponsor the Surrey Board of Trade's Development Forum. We believe that our world is a better place when social services and business organizations support each other. Unity is a partnership of 3 not-for-profit organizations, and we build healthy and inclusive communities, primarily by supporting people with developmental disabilities to live full lives in their community. We develop affordable and inclusive housing not because we really want to be housing developers with all the headaches that come with that, but because one of our missions is that people with disabilities will have the same housing options as everyone else. And we take the mission seriously. In 2016, we completed Chorus, an affordable South Surrey rental apartment that features 20 homes for tenants with developmental disabilities and 51 homes for Surrey residents who can no longer afford to live in the community they grew up in. Seniors, families, students, employees of local businesses. And I should add, so Balra, today when we were talking, there's sometimes a misconception as a non-profit that BC Housing provides all the funding. We'd love it if they did, but that's actually not the fact. When we built Chorus, it was with 7% government funding. Unity provided the rest through our resources and stewarding our resources well. And Chorus has been a resounding success, winning the Fraser Valley Real Estate Board's Apartment of the Year in 2017 and being chosen one of the top 3 Canadian models for inclusive housing by Inclusion Canada in 2020. 2017, we began pre-development work on Harmony, a 91-unit apartment we plan to build on 5.5 acres we own in South Surrey. Through thoughtful consultation and communication, Harmony came to council as the most supported affordable housing project in BC's history. Over 6,500 people expressing support, including 90% of those that commented at the public hearing. Yet, incredibly, despite this and the strong support from city staff, Harmony was rejected by the former mayor and 4 councillors. Unity did not give up. How could we when we knew people such as Lauren Simpson, who's sitting at our table, seniors, families, and others who desperately need a home they can call their own? And we knew that the community, including business community, strongly supported what we were trying to achieve. And I'm proud to say that last November, 1.5 years after its unjust rejection, Harmony was unanimously approved at 3rd reading by Surrey Council. Great news, but the delay in approval meant an additional multi-million dollars in costs that we have to cover. Unity will not give up. We've made a promise to our community that Harmony will be built, and it will be. Unity is putting more of our equity into the project. BC Housing has come to the table and is partnering with us. Mayor Locke and city staff are looking at ways that the city can support the project, and we are asking our community for support as well. We are in the quiet phase of a Harmony Capital campaign. I guess not so quiet anymore because I just shared it, but keep it a secret, please. And some in this room, and I'm grateful, have already reached out to be part of the Harmony campaign team. And I invite others here to help us ensure that we can get our shovels in the ground next spring when we're planning to get that done. So let's build a community where all people are welcomed and belong together. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Doug. So now it's my honor to welcome Milan Mann, President of Real Estate and Construction for the BM Group of Companies, our lunch sponsor, to come forward and join me on stage to say a few words.
Hello, everyone. Milan Mann, President of Real Estate Development and Construction at the BM Group of Companies. On behalf of BMG, it's our honor to be a sponsor of today's event. As a longtime sponsor of the Surrey Board of Trade and a supporter of many of the events over the years, these events afford us the opportunity to strengthen our relationship to the communities we live and operate in by speaking to the issues we face every day. The BM Group represents a portfolio of 18 companies grounded in construction, from abatement and demolition to waterproofing, structural restoration and roofing, to steel fabrication, precast concrete, ready-mix supply, and obviously real estate development. We interact with the construction industry from every stage of a project's life cycle. This diversity allows us the unique opportunity to approach the industry from multiple angles and in turn experience the issues we've discussed today in different ways. Doing business has become increasingly difficult. Financial pressures, staffing challenges, and the mentioned red tape within different municipalities. But as generational builders, we will continue to develop communities in times of economic uncertainty. However, with inconsistency across city staff and misalignment of priorities between different levels of government, this has truly crippled the development industry. The additional burden further constrains the supply of homes when coupled with costs endured through prolonged processes and increased fees. We know these issues do not operate in isolation. They are deeply interconnected, and its compounding nature creates challenges across industries and communities. As today's discussion affects everyone across various political spectrums, I'm confident we can forge a path forward through collaboration of public and private sectors, and our very own Surrey Board of Trade is often the steward for these conversations. As I conclude, I'd like to thank you all for your time and thank the Surrey Board of Trade for another fruitful event. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Milan. And so now I'm going to ask our panelists to join me on stage. And again, I remind you as you're listening to them to please take note of any questions or comments that you're going to be addressing afterwards. So the first speaker is going to be BC's Minister of Housing, Ravi Kahlon, then our City of Surrey Mayor, Her Worship Brenda Locke. We have the Advocacy Projects Manager for the BC Real Estate Association, Mark Sakai, a Medical Health Officer for Fraser Health, Dr. Emily Newhouse, and Director of Development for Bucci Developments, Vice Chair of the Canadian Home Builders Association, Fraser Valley, and a member of the Lytton First Nations with ancestral ties to the Squamish, Kwantlen, and Tsleil-Waututh Nations, Troy Abromaitis. A round of applause for our panelists. So I'm going to ask each of you to come to the podium to do your presentations, and we are going to begin with our very own BC Minister of Housing.
Well, hello, and thank you all for being here today. Is the mic working? It is. All right, great. Thank you all for being here today. I really appreciate the warm welcome, Anita, as always. And I want to recognize, of course, Mayor Locke and Councillor Annis, who's here. And I believe there's other councillors coming, but when they arrive, we'll recognize them. And of course, we're on the traditional territory of the Samiamu, Katsi, Kwantlen, Kwidlam, Katsi, and Tsawwassen nations. And I don't see any of my MLA colleagues in the room, but I do see the former Minister of Health, Terry Lake, is in the room. I want to recognize him for his contributions that he's made to the province as well. Terry, thanks for being here. Well, housing is a topic I always joke that I can't avoid. Many of you that are in the business of housing know that during your work days you talk about housing, and then when you go home, people want to know about housing. And I've been having the same feeling since I've been the Minister of Housing. Everywhere I go, people are concerned about housing from different perspectives. Some people are concerned because they're not able to get housing built, but many people are concerned because they can't get access to housing. Let alone the idea of owning a home. Many people are concerned about whether they'll even be able to rent a home in our communities. And, the challenge of housing, I won't spend time on because I know that my remarks are supposed to be short for the questions. But the challenges are only getting greater in front of us. We know with global inflation that costs have gone up. We know that the interest rates driving up are making a lot of projects not pencil the way that they were before. And we also know that at the same time of all these things, we've got 240,000 people that arrived to British Columbia in the last 2 years, and that trend line is not about to slow down. So we must build more housing. We must build it quicker with all those kind of other headwinds around interest rates and costs going up at the same time. So we have to do things differently. And we're going to have a bit of an exchange today about some of those things, but we have some major legislative reforms coming. I've been talking about the need for change for the last 7 months since I've been the Minister of Housing, and the time has come. In the next 2 weeks, we're going to have tabled in the House some significant pieces of legislation. I'll just want to touch on a few of them. The first one is small-scale multi-units. we have highlighted that we believe that we need to reform how our zoning rules are, not in individual communities, but in a large way across the province. It does not make sense for us to continue down a path that we've been going, which says that in some parts of the community you can have lots of density, and everywhere else it means no touching it. We just are not going to be able to sustain the growth we need in communities that's this way. And some people have said to me that, are you on some sort of vendetta against single-family homes? And I just want to be clear, I am not on a vendetta against single-family homes. And I've said this many times, and I'll say it again. As long as people want single-family homes and they can afford them, they will continue to be built in communities. The market will respond. What we're saying is that when an expensive home comes down and an expensive home comes on the market again, it's not unaffordable for way too many people in British Columbia. And so we need to be able to respond to housing for the needs of our populations. We are at a point of risking a future generation leaving this province because they can't afford to live here. Families are having this conversation in every community. In fact, some of you highlighted that your kids are having this conversation. And we need to address this. And so the legislation that will be coming will highlight not only making it as of right to allow this type of housing to be built, but we'll also be addressing issues around heights, setbacks, parking, so that we can ensure that it's a standard approach that's happening across the province and it's not every community doing something completely different. The second piece is around our infrastructure. We must get more out of the infrastructure that we have. I know there's going to be lots of conversations around infrastructure. I know our friends in the media are going to be asking about infrastructure, I'm sure, later. And we need to invest in infrastructure. It is vital that we do that in order to unlock the housing opportunities we have. But we also need to make sure that we have more housing around the infrastructure that we already have. So that means when we're investing in transit, whether that's rapid bus, whether that's SkyTrain expansion, that we are actually getting the level of housing around those communities and doing it in a way that encourages more housing to be built that is affordable. And that means we have to have a difficult conversation about parking. We build parking. If we built parking the same way we wanted to have housing, we wouldn't be in a housing crisis right now. We do a better job of building homes for cars than we do homes for people. And that needs to be changed. And so you'll see in the coming 2 weeks some major reforms to ensure that we're getting the right amount of parking built around transit, but also so that we can get the maximum amount of bang for our buck around our investments. The third piece I want to touch on is permitting. And I know this is going to be a big topic. It's a big topic everywhere I go. We're bringing in legislation that will reform some of the processes that we use to make decisions, in particular around zoning. We need to find a better way, a more efficient way to have important conversations in our community. And I want to highlight, and I can't go into too much of the legislation, but I do want to highlight that it's important for us to engage communities. This should not be a process where we're not engaging communities on what their community should look like. What we believe is that you should engage with communities, and when you have a plan, we should have some certainty around that so that we can actually get housing built. And with the certainty piece comes the permitting question. And some people say to me, why don't we just mandate that permits will be done in a certain amount of time? It sounds great. But if the systems are not built and designed in a way for that to actually happen, it won't get us the desired outcomes that we want. And so one of the important steps that we've just taken in the last 2 weeks was that we have 15 communities who have stepped forward to be pilot communities. I want to thank Mayor Locke and City of Surrey for being one of those communities. And what we're going to do over the next 7 months is develop a single entry digital permitting platform. The purpose of this is to identify from the 15 communities that we have as pilot projects, to identify what it is they see as a complete application when it gets submitted, and then build some form of uniformed approach so that every community has a sense of what a complete application looks like, have a single entry point so that an application goes through, and we will be working to digitize the building code. So taking steps to not only ensure that applications are complete so the local governments can make good decisions with applications that are fully done, but also ensure that some of the work can be done on the front end. So we're going to move to digitize the building code in stages. But our goal is to move to BIM-enabled, GIS-enabled code development so that we can get code compliance right off the top. So that will alleviate some of the pressures on the complete system. We've got a digital advisory group, which has members from many people in the construction community, the development community, and local government. And I think that this initiative over the long term is going to be a key part of solving our challenge, because the truth is, we will not be able to hire the amount of people we need, whether it's on the planning side or on the construction side, for the amount of housing we need. We need to innovate, we need to find new ways of doing things, and we have to reform our processes. And the last piece that I'll touch on before I have to go, and I know others are coming to the mic, is around cost certainty. We need to find ways to ensure that when a project or a proponent comes in, whether it's a not-for-profit partner or whether it's a private sector partner, that there's a certain level of cost certainty in the front end. So people know what the cost is, and it's not something that is negotiated along the way. Because too often we have projects come in, and then the negotiation actually makes the projects go from viable to unviable. And so we'll be bringing in some legislation to help work with our local government partners to create some more certainty. Not to take away important dollars that are needed for infrastructure, but to ensure that both local governments and proponents have some certainty in the process. So I know there'll be lots of questions, and I look forward to hearing your questions, but I do want to thank you all for being here. I think that having not-for-profit partners, private sector partners, local government, provincial government, all at one table, hearing ideas is the only way we're going to find a path forward. And I appreciate the ideas that have come from many of you already. So with that, thank you for having me, and look forward to your questions.
Lower it as usual. Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's a real pleasure for me to be here. And on behalf of Surrey City Council, I am always excited to join you and always grateful for the good work that Anita Huberman and the Surrey Board of Trade does in our city every single day. Thank you, Anita, and I really do want to applaud you for that. You know, we can't say it enough, but I'll say it again. Surrey is the fastest growing city, and we are going to overtake Vancouver very shortly. Are we ready? I'm not so sure. I hope we are. We're trying very hard. Surrey has grown from 2006 till 2021 by 44%. That is significant. So keeping up with all of the needs around that, all of the infrastructure needs, all of those pressure points has been quite a challenge in this city. But with that growth, we have opportunity and we have a responsibility, and that responsibility is something we have to do together to create a variety of housing options for our residents. There is absolutely no question that to tackle the housing crisis now requires all hands on deck, and I thank Minister Kahlon for all he's done, because certainly there has been a lot of work coming out of his ministry, and I applaud you for that. Thank you. Right across the country, I sit on what's called the Big City Mayors Conference or Committee, and I wish they had a different name. I don't like being called a big city mayor, but we, right across the country, every single large city, whether it's Toronto or Regina, or whether it's even Winnipeg or Calgary, are all struggling with the very same issues, and that is very, very definitely around infrastructure and infrastructure challenges. We all recognize that housing is crucial to what we need to do. We all recognize that the people in, especially the people in this room, are key to that solution for all of us. developers create the places and spaces and the homes that we need for our residents. So to you, you are a critical part of that component, but also is crucial to that is building communities, and building communities requires infrastructure. So for cities, it's about looking at new ways of looking at our funding formula, and we talk about that every day. And I understand and I recognize what the minister is talking about in terms of standardization of some of the issues that we can deal with, some of the things we can do that are standardized. But we also have to recognize that every single city is unique, just like in every individual person. All of our cities are quite unique, and certainly Surrey is one of those. So in all the projections, the estimates that Surrey will need over the coming years, we're talking about 41,000 new homes over the next decade. So, Balridge, are you ready for this? Like, it's a lot, and it's a daunting task, but I know that the good people in this room are certainly up for it. This year in Surrey alone, we have issued building permits for more than 4,400 new homes. We've got about 5,500, something like that, by the end of this year. That's a lot. That's a record number for Surrey. And in addition to all of that, and to what Minister was talking about, there's 60,000 units currently in our approval pipeline, so they're ready to go, and for whatever different reasons, they're not getting past go. But I'm in now the second, just about the second official year as my term as mayor, and I can tell you that me and the entire council, this is one place I would say we don't have much disagreement on, is ready to see all the red tape be removed, all the red tape we can, to streamline the process, to get your good work in the process lines, and make sure, most importantly, make sure that there is an even playing field for every single person that wants to build in our city. We hear often, as you're very insightful, Minister. We hear often that the approval timelines are too long, and that is something that we're tackling in Surrey with guaranteed timelines. And I see our senior planning manager of planning is here, Don Limas. So I'm going to make him stick up his hand, because if you have any problems with that, go get Don. Yeah. So we get that you need certainty for common processes such as single-family building, single-family rezoning, all of those kind of things, and we're ready to help facilitate that. We are currently meeting or exceeding the targets that we set for ourselves in most areas, and have developed an action plan for improving our development processes, including moving to a fully digital permitting process, to streamline the intake processes, and to simplify zoning bylaws in key areas. We are also right-sizing our staffing levels, and there has been some significant changes at Surrey that some of you know, and right-sizing our staffing levels in planning is something that we're working on to keep up with the growing volume and the complexities of the applications that are coming through. The federal government's Housing Accelerator Fund will provide us with additional resources to improve our processes and help us to achieve those targets. We know that housing and transportation choices are clearly linked, and the two represent the two largest expenses for most households. So when we're talking about affordability, there is no doubt about it that transportation is a big key area for that. And we also know that Surrey has been desperately underserved when it comes to transportation infrastructure. We are working on that and hopeful to see some of those changes, and that is why I will be working hard on new transit solutions for Surrey, and that is also why we stick up our hand every day and say Surrey needs its fair share. The last major infrastructure project we saw was in 1994 in Surrey, and that was the Gateway Surrey Central and King George SkyTrain stations opening. Our population has grown by well over 100,000 people since that time. SkyTrain is expected to come to Surrey, but we haven't seen that groundbreaking yet. We're hopeful that's happening, but we're 5 years in and waiting at the same time. For those of you who are paying attention to Vancouver, you will have seen the Broadway corridor is well underway. And as we wait, Surrey and all of the South Fraser, and I work closely with my colleagues both in Delta and Langley's and White Rock, are seeing really rapid growth and challenges with our housing affordability crisis. It absolutely is persisting and it's worsening, and we know that. But without rapid transit expansion, we are leaving thousands of commuters and putting housing targets that we want to see at risk. We're certainly open and ready to work as again the brilliance of the minister said. We're really looking to densify those corridors, and there's no doubt about it that that's something that's part of the plan. In Surrey, just so you know, around transit ridership, the more than anywhere, not only in Metro Vancouver, not only in British Columbia or Canada, in North America, ridership post-pandemic, after COVID, is the highest anywhere. We're 120% right now in Surrey. So when you take a look at that and you recognize that it goes hand in glove with affordability and housing, you can recognize the challenges that we face. And that is why our council is strongly advocating to receive the first, hopefully, bus rapid transit line, and that it will be the one that is going to go down King George, goes a little bit on 104, and then straight down King George to 99, and we're hopeful, and we're one of the top 9 for that project. So that route will be, it is right now, the highest ridership, so you're going to see massive changes on the King George corridor. Surrey was, as most of you know, was preparing for that and has been preparing for that for a long time, so we're ready. That was part of the BRT challenge at the time, and so now, fingers crossed, BRT will run straight down King George Boulevard. I'm just going to mention one other thing on infrastructure, and more than with other cities, and this is where the unique part comes in, more than with other cities, Surrey schools are busting at the seams, and for any of you with children or grandchildren like me in the system, you'll know our school system in Surrey is woefully underserved, and we have to work with the provincial government to see that change, because right now, this year alone, we had predicted 1,300 new children in the school system. We ended up with 3,000. That's similar to what happened last year, where there was 2,500, and we're just not keeping up with the school builds. I can tell you right now, in one of the schools in Surrey, there are so many portables that they now have to have a portable washroom for the school. I find that really concerning. So the City of Surrey is committed to working with other levels of government and the development industry so we can see the transit expansion, the healthcare expansions, the changes to the schools come to fruition so that we can see those real shovels get into the ground. We can see people moving faster in our cities. We can see children going to schools appropriately, and we can see the healthcare needs that we all know we need taken care of. I look forward to working with every single one of you, and I usually give out my phone number about this point in the but I'm not going to, because I told you where Dawn is. So you can sick Dawn instead for now. But no, please do call our office at any time or contact my office. We're always ready to see good new projects come to fruition. So thank you very much.
So after Anita, Minister, and the Mayor, I know what you're thinking. Who the heck is this guy? Mark Sakai. I'm with the BC Real Estate Association. We're the provincial association for the 8 real estate boards in the province. And I've been given 8 minutes to diagnose and find solutions for the housing crisis. So here we go. So CMHC recently, last year, published a report that said Canada needs to build 3.5 million additional housing units over and above our business as usual by 2030 if we want to achieve any form of affordability. An Ipsos poll recently said that 2/3 of Canadians have given up on the possibility of ever owning a home. So yes, we have a crisis, but what are the challenges? Housing supply is inelastic. It takes a long time for supply to respond to changes in the market, and I'm sure Troy is going to tell us a little bit about those challenges and how long it takes to get a project approved. But one part of housing supply that is relatively elastic is the resale market. But even that is connected to new housing completions. When new housing is built, some of the new occupants have moved out of their previous residence, so that unit can come to the market, or they've moved out of rental accommodations, so another rental unit becomes available. But in either case, that new housing opens up old housing. Demand, on the other hand, is a function of household formation, population growth, immigration, and price. And it's pretty hard to change demographics. If you look at any age breakdown of the Canadian population, and you'll see this huge bump in the 25 to 34 age range. And that is the prime group that is seeking housing for the first time, whether it be rental or purchasing, and that drives the demand for housing. That also is the prime target group for new immigration. We're trying to bring in new Canadians in that age group to be functional, productive members of the Canadian economy. So some people have said, well, maybe we should then reduce immigration and reduce the housing supply. But there's a challenge of that, is that Canada needs immigration. By 2041, there will be 1.15 million more Canadians aged 85 or over. So we need people in those employment years to provide not only the services, but the taxes that are going to be necessary to support the aging population. We also saw the results of a natural experiment during the pandemic. Immigration rates dropped dramatically, and yet housing prices took off. So that's a demonstration, that's proof that immigration isn't the driver for housing price escalation. It's that demographics that I was just talking about. In addition, the Conference Board of Canada recent report shows that the residential construction industry needs to fill 12,000 vacancies per year if we want to meet our housing construction targets. It makes sense that some of that immigration is targeted specifically towards the tradespeople that we need to build those homes. That's part of the solution as well, because do we have the capacity to build those 3.5 million additional homes? I think a lot of the people who work in the construction industry will tell you we're in trouble on that front. A recent Advocacy data poll has also shown that 62% of Canadians agree with this statement. It is important to address the housing affordability crisis without compromising Canada's goals to address climate change. Recent events in the forests and flooding have shown that the climate change is not something that's going to happen, it's already here. So what are the solutions then to this housing crisis? Well, first, we need to treat a crisis like it's a crisis. There's no silver bullet. There's no magic wand. The inelasticity of housing demand means that this requires a long-term solution. We need more housing options for more people in more places. This means that we do everything. We keep doing it, and we monitor the outcomes to ensure that our investments in these improvements are yielding actual results. So, yes to improving the housing development approvals process, including strengthening official community plans, pre-zoning land, and reforming the public hearing process, and giving councils across this province the tools to resist NIMBYism. So yes to streamlining and simplifying development financing, and recognizing that growth pays for growth is not an equitable way to fund new and upgraded infrastructure. Yes to zoning reform to allow gentle density, missing middle housing in our low density single family areas, because it makes no sense that the most expensive housing that we could possibly build is the most easiest housing to build. It should be just as easy to build affordable, smart, gentle densification housing as it is to build large mansions. Yes to more funding of nonprofit housing, non-market housing, including co-ops, co-housing, tiny houses, and shelter housing with appropriate supports. Yes to more innovative construction processes such as mass timber, modular housing, and panelization. Yes to more climate change resilient, energy efficient designs and construction that reduce GHG emissions and protect people from the effects of future floods and wildfires. Yes to more appropriately located infrastructure such as transit, schools, community amenities, water supply and treatment plants with a proper financing plan so that we don't place the burden of paying for all of these just on new home buyers. Yes to immigration policies that target construction trade people. Yes to the proper coordination of federal, provincial, and municipal policies to create efficiencies, eliminate redundancy, and incentivize the proper types of housing in the best locations. A permanent provincial housing roundtable that brings together all of the players would be a good start. So, do I have all of the answers on how to implement all of this while addressing construction labor shortages, high interest rates, and escalating construction costs? No, I don't. If I did, I'd probably be working for him. But it will take all of this, undertaken on a long-term basis with proper monitoring to ensure that people have a place to live that they call home in this province. Thank you.
Hello there. I'm Dr. Emily Newhouse. I'm a medical health officer at Fraser Health. Thank you so much for inviting me to present today. And I do have a few slides. Can I get those up? Oh, I have to click it. Thank you. All right. I'd like to acknowledge that Fraser Health provides services on the traditional, unceded, and ancestral territories of the Coast Salish and Inuktitut Nations, also home to 6 Métis Charter communities. So here at Fraser Health, our Healthy Environments team helps to share evidence-based recommendations on how we design our communities in ways that support the health of our residents. Our Healthy Environments team most often works with local governments to provide input on official community plans and other large-scale plans to ensure health considerations are incorporated. Also, increasingly, increasingly, we're doing work on recent years on enhancing community planning for climate change hazards. We're always looking for new opportunities to share the health evidence, so I'm really excited to talk to you today. As business leaders and community developers, your work is crucial for building healthy communities in Surrey. You might be surprised at how closely connected our health outcomes are with the design choices that we make at the regional, neighborhood, and individual home level. These design choices influence health in lots of ways. They change our behavior, they change our social connection in our social environment, and of course, they change our exposure to various health hazards. And with ongoing challenges from extreme weather, it's becoming evident that we need to incorporate climate change resilience as well. Now, to take a few examples, you'll be well familiar that with climate change, we're going to have more risks from extreme weather like heat, wildfire smoke, more intense storms and rainfall. These can have a number of direct health impacts, from heat to asthma to increased chronic lung disease, increased rates of cardiovascular disease, and the list goes on. And of course, we want to build community resources to address extreme weather events and sort of be that stopgap. But we also recognize that making homes healthier is where we ultimately need to focus. That's where people spend most of their time. So as an example, we can incorporate more passive cooling designs, exterior shading, better ventilation and air filtration systems, and appropriate siting. And I think really importantly, we need to be using climate projections instead of historical data. We often use historical data because that's what's required for a lot of our building planning, but we know that if we use climate projections, we're actually going to be designing homes for what we're going to experience in the future. Now, it's also really important to address our greenhouse gas emissions. Limiting the amount of climate change that happens limits, of course, the health effects it's going to have. But the great news is that a lot of interventions have simultaneous benefits for health and reductions of GHGs. So the clearest example at the home level might be a heat pump. It both reduces emissions and provides mechanical cooling that'll keep people safe in extreme weather. But we also can consider how mixed-use neighborhoods can help us reduce our reliance on vehicles. So that reduces GHG emissions, but it also reduces our exposure to air pollution. These mixed-use neighborhoods that facilitate people to get around through walking or cycling have health benefits for those people because they're engaging in more physical activity, and we see that reflected in reduced rates of chronic disease. I think another really important piece is about how design supports social connection. Social connection is a hugely important determinant of our health. Our relationships with family and friends are strong predictors of our physical and mental health outcomes. And again, there's design elements that can help build those connections. So common spaces, both at the neighborhood and building level, especially those that can bring people together over common activities. And of course, as housing gets more expensive, children, grandchildren, older parents sometimes have to move farther from their support networks, both social and medical. So integrating affordable housing in a wide range of housing types can help keep those support networks intact. And knowing your neighbors is actually surprisingly important. It's actually correlated with your health outcomes, even after we account for those other social relationships you have in your lives. So in a time when we're seeing more extreme weather events, heat dome, flooding, having neighbors and families be available, they're often the first line of support for people, especially our most vulnerable. So we need to be building communities that build and maintain those connections. Finally, I want to highlight green space. I have here green infrastructure, and I think that's really important because this is just as much an aspect of our infrastructure as all of the other things that we build. Green space, we know it improves psychological well-being, it reduces stress and anxiety. We see it have a correlation in rates of chronic disease, lower rates of cancer, autoimmune disease, et cetera. It fosters social interaction as well as recreation and physical activity, so it's super important. And when it comes to climate change, it's even more important because green space reduces the urban heat island effect, it reduces how much heat our cities absorb, it provides air pollution cleaning, it cleans water, it does stormwater management. In fact, the economic value of green space in providing these what we call ecosystem services is enormous. And trees are particularly important for this. Other kinds of green space also important, but trees in particular. So how do we do this along with densification? There are some very easy alignments with density with some of the health outcomes I talked about. Having those medium to high density spaces that facilitate physical activity, those are really well aligned with density. But it does require us to set aside common spaces designed for a range of family structures and mixed uses, and being thoughtful about how we integrate transit, green space, and all of those other elements that are crucial to us staying well in the face of climate change. But it's really well worth it. Homes and neighborhoods that have health promotion built in from the ground will help us both mitigate and adapt to climate change. As business leaders, you have incredible power to shape resilient, healthy communities for decades to come. Thank you.
Thank you to the Surrey Board of Trade and the sponsors for the opportunity here to speak today. And I'm glad to be here with such an esteemed group of speakers as well. My name is Abromaitis. I'm the Director of Development for Bucci Developments. I'm also the Vice Chair of the Canadian Home Builders Fraser Valley, and I'm also a member of Lytton First Nation. I'm here to talk today about opportunities and challenges developing in Surrey, and also opportunities working with First Nations for real estate development. I'll be covering market dynamics, but Mark, you did a really good job of covering that, so I can skip through some of my information. Talking about city development comparison between Surrey and Vancouver, because we do a lot of work both in Surrey and Vancouver, and then finishing with Indigenous opportunities. Traditionally, Vancouver has held the spotlight as the prime real estate investment and development epicenter in British Columbia, particularly in the office and multifamily sector. With residential homes, the impact of the pandemic has driven a change in living preferences. A significant shift has occurred, with many choosing to relocate to suburbs and cities beyond Vancouver where they can enjoy more space and affordability, such as cities of Surrey. This transformation brings us to Surrey, a city poised to redefine the real estate investment, becoming the new epicenter for investors, residents, and businesses alike, the Surrey Board of Trade supports. Surrey's transformation is not limited to just its city centre. New concrete towers will be emerging in various areas like Fleetwood and Guildford. Fleetwood is an area that we're working in right now, where we have a tower application next to an upcoming SkyTrain station, and extending beyond the traditional boundaries of the central business district of Surrey. New expansion of the SkyTrain network is poised to drive this further growth in the next few years. The surging population of Surrey is a central factor in the real estate story. As the mayor had indicated, it's the fastest growing city. In 2022, the population was just over 600,000. In 2031, the population is supposed to be over 700,000. And in 2041, the population is supposed to be over 800,000. So that has a major impact on planning development, providing affordable housing options, both rental and for market housing. So it's incredibly important to take this into consideration. For a development comparison, quickly just speaking about projects that we've worked on, in Surrey, we have an active application, the Orion application in Surrey Fleetwood. It's located at 160th and Fraser Highway, pretty much directly adjacent to the future upcoming SkyTrain station there in that plan's core. We're proposing over 900,000 square feet. It'll be 1,000 homes in our application. It's 39, 34, and 15 stories, so it's a relatively large project. That process was about a 2-year planning process to work through with the city, given when we started actively engaging with the planning department, to where we're at now, and then once the plan is enacted, to get our approvals in place. On the flip side, working in Vancouver, it's a lot tougher, it's a lot more challenging. We worked on a 6-story wood frame development. It was 69 homes, 61,000 square feet, so a fraction of the size of what we're developing in Surrey right now. Our application went in fully compliant with the Grandview Woodland Plan. The neighbors didn't like it though, so it took us over 3 years to get the project approved, just to break ground. And we had to do 12 significant redesigns to that project in order to get it through the process. Surrey, from our perspective, allows for developments to be fast-tracked and run concurrent with the planning process, which is a major competitive advantage. We're at 3rd reading, and we'll be seeking 4th reading and final enactment after the Stage 2 plan is approved, which I alluded to a few minutes ago. Construction for us will begin shortly thereafter, once we secure our approvals. It's obviously market dependent. If the market continues the way it is right now, we'll probably delay it a little bit, but that's market factors. It has nothing to do with like planning process or red tape. Some of the challenges that we find in Surrey, we'd like to have larger floor plates for towers because it allows us to put more housing in a shorter tower format, makes the neighbors happy, makes the city happy too, hopefully. Servicing studies and timeline are always a challenge for developers. I think as a developer, when you're working through the servicing process, you think it can be shortened. Ideally, it could be or it would be. So this is something that we brought up to Don Loomis before. And then also speeding up the development process in general. Every developer always asks for the city to speed up the process. But when you compare Vancouver to Surrey, I think it gives a stark contrast that Surrey is a very good city to be working in. Don Loomis has done a very good job. He's actively engaging currently with developers all throughout the city of Surrey, with bi-monthly meetings, which we as Bucci attend. And we've seen process improvements that have been driven by the city. So, it's very favorable that the city's doing this, and the mayor and council have pushed them to have the tools to work through this. An example of a project in Vancouver, a recent one that we were just trying to work through, we went and met with the city planning department. We're trying to propose an 18-story purpose-built rental with an affordable housing component, which is what is a dire shortage right now for housing within British Columbia. The site that we chose, it's 10 minutes from the SkyTrain station. It's affected by a view cone, unfortunately. It's near the commercial commercial Broadway SkyTrain station. So that's $1 billion investment, and it's highly underdeveloped, unfortunately. We wanted to submit an application under the new Vancouver plan, which was recently approved by the city. Our application that we wanted to submit would have been in compliance with this plan and their 2050 vision. The City of Vancouver Planning Department, they're not looking to implement this plan that's been approved for another 2 or 3 years. So unfortunately, they recommended that we wait until the implementation of the plan is complete so that we can submit an application. Even though American Sim indicated view cones were under review and they would be adjusted to allow for much needed housing supply, the city staff do not want to take applications until the study is complete. This is also contrary to American Sim's goal of eliminating red tape and adding to the housing supply and housing market. Based on Surrey's process, however, you can begin the development application during the city planning process of a neighborhood, and the final adoption of the project would conclude shortly thereafter the implementation of that plan. It's counterintuitive that the City of Vancouver would not fast-track rental applications and allow developers to get to third reading during the planning process to shorten the delivery of this housing typology. This approach would reduce delivery time of housing by 1 to 3 years. When the Broadway plan was enacted, developers waited until the plan was approved to submit. This resulted in a dramatic increase of development inquiries and applications, which created a major backlog in the City of Vancouver. Artificial delays and hurdles result in projects missing not only market cycles, but also full election cycles. Lastly, developers like Coromandel, who are heavily invested in Vancouver, stated that the Vancouver planning policy had detrimental impacts on their business model. Imagine if they had invested in Surrey. What might that have looked like for them? For example, they had purchased properties at Joyce Station, which would have made an excellent tower market and rental housing development, but they were not able to proceed because the approved plan was not in place. Developments around all SkyTrain stations should be fast-tracked so that the housing and infrastructure can be maximized. The City of Surrey is excellent in this regard. Allowing applications to proceed now, following the vision of the province and current city councils, would fast-track much-needed market rental housing and have it delivered 1 to 3 years faster if we all work together to help solve the housing crisis. The City of Surrey has a planning process that works with developers in the industry, allows developers to fast-track applications, streamlines the application process, and helps to forecast issues that could hinder projects. And they work as partners with the development community to help deliver much-needed housing. The Mayor and Council do an excellent job. So thank you, Mayor Locke. We've appreciated the process that we've gone through to get our housing application approved to third reading. Planning, engineering, the other departments as well, but the City of Surrey have done a great job as well in our application, so we're happy with the process that we've gone through. Surrey is a model city when it comes to development and delivering housing. So now we'll talk quickly about First Nations, the side of things. So I'm a member of Lytton First Nation. As you know, Lytton First Nation and Lytton, the village of Lytton, burned down 2 years ago in a wildfire caused by global warming. It was terrible. My First Nation itself has built about 140 modular homes that we've been working on with the province and the feds and like with INAC and other organizations. So we've been very lucky because we were able to respond very quickly after the fire had occurred. But unfortunately, the village of Lytton is still working through the process of getting housing rebuilt there. It's just the only thing I'll mention talking about that. I also have family ties to Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Kwantlen nations. So I was also asked to speak about First Nations opportunities. If you look at Vancouver and MST, which is Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh, they're the largest landholding developer currently in the city of Vancouver right now, which is a huge opportunity for that particular area. They've partnered with developers like Akwelini. They've partnered with Squamish has partnered with developers like with West Bank to work on major projects. Working with the First Nation or a group of First Nations has major benefits not only for economic reconciliation for the nation, but also working with the cities, which they call their traditional unceded territory home. For example, if you're working with Musqueam in the city of Vancouver and you're looking to upzone a site slightly higher than would normally be allowed for a typical development, having them as a partner and having the chief and council on board really does help to get the process sped up, really does help to create economic benefits and job opportunities for those particular nations that are partners. Kwantlen, Katzie, and Semiahmoo have an economic development arm called Sacred Elements, which many of you might not be familiar with. They're a very good group to chat with if you're a real estate developer in the room and you're looking for opportunities to partner with First Nations. Get to know the chief and council, get to know elders, get to know artists in these various communities. It's a great way to learn more about the local First Nations who call Surrey home. And it's a really good way to understand the culture and the community and to build relationships, because it's all really about building relationships. First Nations themselves as well are governing bodies. They're treated like a municipality when you're dealing with a chief and council. So that's something else to take into consideration. I would highly encourage anyone here to also just have a coffee conversation with a chief or a councillor. When we were working on our Fleetwood project, we had two different iterations of the design. The first iteration was done by our architect. As we were advancing our application, we thought it would be very unique if we included a Coast Salish design in our architecture, and we worked with the local First Nations artists to design the metal panels of our building, so 39 and 34 stories. It's a Coast Salish weave design that was done by a local artist to help us with that design concept. We thought that it was a way to do a form of kind of public reconciliation or public visual reconciliation, which was really, really cool. So that was an opportunity that we worked with other artists and other nations. We're inviting them to work with us on other art aspects of our application. So there's a huge opportunity to work with First Nations, partner with First Nations on developments. I can provide my contact information if you're interested in learning more about partnering with local First Nations. By all means, please feel free to reach out. That concludes my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Troy. So everyone, you have an amazing, esteemed panel here. If you have questions or comments, please go to the microphone, state your name, company name, and your question very succinctly. We are recording the event. But I just want to start with the first question, if I may. So, Minister, tell me how you are working with the federal government on all of the things that we need to do to address the housing crisis.
How much time do we have? Just kidding. I found that working with Minister Fraser, who's the new Minister of Housing, to be quite good. He's very thoughtful. He wants to get things done. Had a good opportunity to connect with Minister Freeland multiple times. I think she's got a good understanding of the challenges right now that we're dealing with. We advocated for the GST removal on purpose-built rentals, which we're happy to see. But what we've said to the federal government is we need a true partner. Although I appreciate the steps that have been taken, we need a real partnership. As the mayor has highlighted, there's infrastructure needs. As a province, we invested in the Iona water facility. We invested in the challenges TransLink was facing, $500 million to make sure that they can continue to grow as they move forward. We invested in the 5 development projects that Metro Vancouver wanted to advance. And so we just need the federal government partnership there as well. And so if they can't come in, I think we all just need to know where our space is in this, within the housing continuum. And I think where the federal government can come in is heavy on the infrastructure side, and actually investing in housing for affordable housing in communities. Because the challenge we have is, and I say this, with all due respect, the private sector won't be able to solve this alone. Like, the idea that the private sector is just going to solve the housing crisis, they're a key part of it. They're going to, given the environment we're in, there's going to be a segment of the population, we need the private sector there. But there are some people that needs different types of supports that we're going to need not-for-profit partners on. And that's the work that Doug and others do to ensure that everybody has the type of housing that they need. And the federal government needs to match us. And that's what our ask has been to them, is match us dollar for dollar. We're the only province in the country investing on and off reserve for Indigenous housing. No other province is investing on reserve housing because it's a federal government jurisdiction. We do it because, A, it's the right thing to do, and I think British Columbians want us to do that. We also do it because we know when the housing on reserve is not adequate, what happens is people are forced to go into cities to find access to services, forced to move away from their family, move away from their community, which adds additional pressures on them. It puts additional pressures on the nations, and it puts additional challenges when those folks can't find housing, and it puts pressure on the community. So, that's I would say the partnership is there, the conversation is there, but we need actions. And I look forward to hearing about what their actions will be in the coming weeks.
Thank you. To the microphone. Go ahead.
Minister, I didn't mean to disappoint by not
I
being
saw
here,
you.
so
You
I'm
had.
here, my
I knew when I
friend.
saw you had ruddy shoes on.
I
knew
was-
you were going to run to the mic first.
Not a chance I wouldn't. But briefly, as Anita requested, I am a past chair of the Board of Trade. As some remember, a long time ago, back in 2015, but the matters of infrastructure were alive and well then as serious challenges for Surrey across every front that the panel has rightly spoken to. I'm also the CEO of the Centre for Child Development for the past 24 years, a member of the Healthy Community Partnership, SFU's Community Advisory Council, the Primary Care Network, etc. Why? Because the partnerships that all of you have talked about are essential to this. Dr. Newhouse made some excellent points. Thank you about social determinants of health. My question to you, Minister, we often talk about the cities and permitting, and those are key issues, and congrats and many good compliments to the work the City of Surrey has done. Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. The province. Anita's question was regarding the federal government for not-for-profit organizations like the Centre for Child Development, like Unity and others, the coordination between the Ministry of Health, the Ministry for Children and Family Development, the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure, etc. You referenced former Minister Locke, who's in the audience, and often it is the interchange between these siloed ministries to a degree that is a large part of the timing and challenge and the delays for the not-for-profit and public partners to get the work done of helping build communities together that honor what Dr. Newhouse was referring to. So your comments, please, Minister, in regards to the coordination of the provincial government. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And, the first announcement as Minister of Housing that I was able to do with Premier Eby when he appointed me, after I took 2 weeks of just dealing with the shock of having to take this file on, was announcing that we would significantly both increase our resources for our permitting, provincial permitting, because there are challenges there. MODI permitting, water-related forest permitting. So what we did was we created one entity that was in charge of permitting, and we're fast-tracking all multi-housing projects through that ministry. Just this week, we announced, so first off, we're seeing real progress when it comes to MODI. The wait times have come down considerably, and we have still a lot more work to do, but I'm feeling good about where things are going there. We still have challenges on the water side. And so what we announced just this week, the Premier announced, is that the the water division, anything that touches water was historically with Ministry of Forestry, now is coming to the new Water Land Resource Ministry. And so now we have one entity dealing with permits. And so instead of multiple ministries touching it, now we have one entity that's in charge of permitting. And so that's important because, as you highlighted, too often it's like, you got to figure out what ministry to go to. Sometimes they don't talk. And so now we have created one entity that is forced to talk. And not only that, we're now setting up a team that will be dedicated per project to help steward the project through. So the reason why we did that was we didn't want to go to communities, local governments and federal government and say, you fix your house without starting to fix our house. We did that first. Now, you also mentioned the connection between multiple ministries. We now, because there was no Ministry of Housing before, and I always joke that, or not joke, I guess always comment the fact that I had the file of Minister for Economic Recovery before, and I say to people, since I've become Minister of Housing, I'm still doing economic recovery. Because everything connects to housing, healthcare, as was mentioned, social services, our poverty reduction strategy, health, all these pieces are connected. And so now we regularly meet to talk about how we align our programming, how we get the same type of outcomes on. It's not perfect. Anyone has a major company or major corporation, they'll know that it's just the nature of such a large entity to have that cross-lateral communication. But first is acknowledging that it's a problem. Second is starting to figure out how you bring teams together that can help fast-track processes. And then third is the outcome. And we're starting to see the outcome when it comes to Modi. And I'm hoping with this change, we start seeing the reform when it comes to water in particular. And so I appreciate your question. And Mayor might want to make some additional comments on the reform. Sorry, I put you on the spot. You may not. But.
Well, thanks for that. The putting on the spot piece, I mean. I'll speak specifically to social housing and to housing that is for people that are vulnerable. And one of the things that we've certainly recognized in the City of Surrey is that we have in the City of Surrey great homegrown partners in that. We have great groups like Unity, certainly Child Development Center and Sources and Options. And so I'm only saying that to let you know that for Surrey, we really want to lean on our homegrown, our own NGOs that are doing the great work every single day in our city. And so when we get, if I could ask one thing of ministry, when BC Housing comes in to support that the city is involved in picking the actual organization that is going to manage and run and provide the services that are integral to whatever that operation is, whatever that population is. It's really important. When I talked about the uniqueness of every city, that is what is unique about City of Surrey. We don't want people coming in from other areas and providing services in our city, because we know the people we know. We have our own unique way of doing business in Surrey, as does every single city. That's really just a pitch for all of the good NGOs that do work in our city. So,
next question.
Thanks, thanks, Anita, and thanks to the panelists and the Board of Trade for the presentation. My name is Terry Lake. I'm with the BC Care Providers Association. We represent operators of BC's senior living, wellness, and care. And the labor shortage and the challenges that we have in labor and housing are inextricably linked. And the largest employer we have in almost every community is the health authority. And we have the situation whereby in some parts of the province, we can't fill spaces, and so long-term beds are being closed, which of course backs up into the hospital system. So we've got the largest employer in most communities dealing with the largest labor issue. And it seems to me there should be a way of bringing the cities, BC Housing and health authorities together. And I think about Whistler and the Whistler Housing Authority that has been created there to solve a problem that they've had for a very long time, matching employees with housing. So I wonder if there's any sense that we could do that, create health authority housing authorities for healthcare workers, so that we could provide living for those people that otherwise couldn't afford to come to Surrey or go to Kelowna or to Kamloops in order to fill those very, very needed jobs in healthcare as we look at our aging demographic.
Yeah. I'll jump in. I was gonna make a joke that you've been away from politics too long. You didn't point the question to anybody, so nobody was going to answer it. But stay tuned is my answer. We have been doing that work with our health authority partners. You are correct to highlight that. You know, we are attracting a lot of nurses, EC workers. We're attracting to province. That's positive. But the biggest hurdle we have is the fact that we don't have affordable housing. And so, you know, not only do we need to think about who are the target populations that we need to ensure that we have housing for, because everybody needs it, but there's, you know, we have to make decisions, as you know, as former Minister of Health. But we also have to figure out what that relationship and partnership looks like with our private sector partners, our not-for-profit partners, and our local government partners. And so I would say that we have announced that we're going to be launching a program called BC Builds in the new year. And it's going to see the provincial government get involved in affordable housing for workforce housing in a big way across the province. And there's no model like this that I'm aware of in Canada, but we have seen it in other jurisdictions, Singapore, Vienna, et cetera. And so we are right now in the process of creating a land bank of all provincial-owned land, whether that's land municipally owned or owned by crown corporations through our health authorities, et cetera. And we are doing an assessment, and it takes some time to do that assessment, as you can appreciate, because it's not only vacant land, but it's also underutilized land. So it's going to take us a little bit of time to assess what opportunities there are. But we believe with our government lands, with low-cost financing from government, by tools that government has to get permitting done much quicker, and good partnership with the private sector and not-for-profit partners to build it, because we don't have the capacity to build it, we think we can get to a good target rate that can attract workforce housing in communities around the province. And so we are looking at that very thing, and thank you for highlighting it, because it is the number one reason why it's hard to attract that kind of workforce into our communities, and you would know that from your members.
So I'm just going to ask for the questions and responses to be shorter so we can get through the lineup. But you're a popular minister, absolutely. Next question.
Okay, I'll try very hard to keep this relatively short. First of all, thank you for this fantastic panel. And so many of the comments today have been very hopeful and inspiring. And I'd like to just briefly say that the city of Surrey really is a bright light in the Lower Mainland as far as being committed to growth and providing the homes that we all need. And in a similar vein, just the last year or so has been really hopeful from the province as well, as far as, you know, putting priority on putting homes near transit. The but to this, I guess, is in this case related to a really significant increase in fees that just came down today, actually, on the regional DCCs. Those are 260% fee increase, millions and millions of dollars per projects. And it's basically what's happened is now all of the costs associated with infrastructure projects that are being kind of managed by the GBRD have been downloaded to new developments and new homeowners, right? And the unfortunate reality of that is that that is going to undermine the ability for the industry to help provide homes for people to live in. And there's just no way around it. It's too big of a hit for many projects to digest. And it is going to slow down the provision of homes, and it's going to reduce the provision of homes. So the question in all of that is, you know, as Surrey, the largest, fastest growing city in the Lower Mainland and the province, what voice did you have, what voice can you have in preventing massive side spikes to the provided provision of housing like
I'll take that. I was actually in that meeting today. So the challenge for Metro Vancouver is that there is a need for infrastructure. There is no doubt about that. To be frank, previous directorships, I guess, have been kicking that can down the road a long time. And it's come to that place where Metro Vancouver is very concerned about the future of water, of certainly how we deal with solid and liquid waste, and all of the infrastructure that the city of, that Metro Vancouver has to deal with. I think it's important that the one thing that we talked about in big city mayors, and we'll talk about even right here in Metro, is around the need for a new funding formula. There needs to be new funding formulas for cities. Cities get about, and this goes with Metro Vancouver. Our resources are very limited. Of course, everybody knows we balance our budgets. We must. It's the law, and so. We really do need a new deal for cities, but at the end of the day, it was truly an issue of moving it 1 year away or dealing with the problem today, and I think there was not an easy answer to that, but it was certainly the one that the growing communities chose, was to deal with the issue right now, right here, right now, and try and move forward. We all do recognize that this wasn't the one that everybody wanted to deal with, and I'm going to actually have a chat with Mark, because one of the things that we talk about always is that growth pays for growth, and so that was one of the pressure points that we were all under.
So Minister and then Mark.
If I can make a mark, okay? Yeah. I guess my response to it, and it just kind of all happened while I was sitting here waiting to come up here, was, I haven't had a chance to talk to the chair of Metro yet, but I certainly will, is that, a little disappointed, because I think that the recommendation, some of the suggestions by Minister Fraser was, I thought, a pretty reasonable way to move forward. But I get the challenge that Metro Vancouver mayors are facing, and I appreciate the challenge that the mayor has highlighted. We have infrastructure needs too, right? And so people stuck a camera on my face yesterday and said, "What are you doing to help with the infrastructure needs?" And that's why we invested in the Iona water facility. That's why we invested in a wastewater facility. That's why we invested in TransLink to take pressure off of our local government partners. That's why we're investing in 911 system reform, because we know there's a cost that's associated with it. And so now, while I was disappointed with that, I am still hopeful that we're going to find a good solution. I would say that the letter from Minister Fraser came only a few days ago, and with the suggestion. And so I think that we need to go back to the table and have a further discussion. And I'm certainly hoping that will be the case. But it's all happening live, and we haven't had a chance to talk about it. But in the end of the day, for me, the main goal is to get the federal infrastructure dollars into our communities. We need it. We need the infrastructure dollars to get our housing going. And so but it's also easy for me to say they should do this and they should do that when they have pressures as well. And so I'm not stepping on anyone's toes other than say we have to find a solution.
If I could just add to that, I don't know if this is on. If I could just add to that, you're absolutely right. I mean, we do know that this is just one part of what we're going to do, but we absolutely know at Metro Vancouver that there has to be a lot of review about how we do move forward as this processes, because it is challenging times for sure. Thank you.
Mark?
Yeah, my concern, I said that the growth pays for growth. It's a bit of a flawed concept, because these huge infrastructure projects do not simply benefit the new projects, and they don't simply benefit the new residents of those projects. So in my opinion, it's unfair that the burden, the financial burden of these projects is placed on these new residents, when in fact the entire community benefits. The Iona wastewater treatment plant is a $10 billion project. It's not being rebuilt because of growth. It's being rebuilt so that it meets environmental standards. So there's a growth element there, yes, but there's a larger rationale for that project. So the 1% municipal assist factor, which I'm sure a lot of you in this room understand, that's a flawed concept. That 1% of that project should be attributed to the residents as a whole, and 99% should be burdened to the new projects. I'm afraid that I don't believe that that's a fair approach. So I think some of this needs to be reformed. I think there's some work going on in the province about the development financing, and I'm hoping that some reform will come from that.
Next question, please.
Sorry, I just realized I didn't introduce myself. I'm Alexander Wright from Anthem Properties, and thank you so much for your answers.
Thank you, Alex. Sharon.
May I ask 2 questions?
Briefly, very, very quick.
Okay, very quickly.
We're just going to pick one. We're going to only answer one, though.
You're only going to answer one of them. Okay, well, both are important because one of those is actually asked by one of the members here, but he did not want to get up and ask a question. So my name is Charan Sethi. I've been involved in the housing industry for 38 years. Most of it is always in the middle class section. And currently involved in a large development in Wally. And we just bought a large piece of land in Penticton right now. So both questions are actually relevant to the development that we are doing. One is there's a new bylaw. It might have already been on BC Building Code, which is requiring the developers to build 100% of the units adaptable housing. Now, the question is, we've always had special homes, buildings built for people with disabilities. Do we really need to add that extra cost to the current building which are moving forward? Because the efficiency goes lower, cost becomes higher, and less number of units get built in that building. So that's number one question. I'll ask the second one once you answer the first one.
I was kidding. You can ask both. We'll answer both.
Ask the second question as well? Okay. Second question is the short-term rentals. So our development in Penticton is right across the road from the regional hospital, which requires short-term rental for rotating staff that works in that hospital. As you know, rotating staffs are all over BC, where staff is pulled in for work, whether they work for a week or whether they work for a month, but that's required. So will communities like Penticton have a right to say, no, we are going to stay with short-term rentals?
So I'll go backwards, and the answer is no until they get to a healthy vacancy rate in their community, which is CMHC's definition is 3%. Hopefully with your projects, all the projects you have, there'll be enough housing there in the community for people. The health authority right now does have, you're right, health care professionals that come in to communities to work, but the average is 120 days. Stay. So it's more than 90 days stay. And so, I think it's vitally important that we find a way to ensure that as much of our housing is available for people. And I've heard lots of things from people. Some people say the 400 square feet is the units that exist are too small for people to rent. We have people living full-time, two full-time people working full-time jobs, living in RVs, which is really small space. And so, to suggest, some people suggest that 400 square feet is too small. I agree we want bigger suites, but, this is the challenge I have, is I've got people who are struggling, young people who are working cannot find a place to live, and we need to have more of that housing come back. And so there may be some unique circumstances, but we'll have to navigate them as we move forward. Your question on the building code, I think is a good one. The paper that we put out was a paper for discussion, a white paper, where we asked people for feedback. We're still going through the feedback that people provide. I think to the core, I think people could agree that we need to have more accessibility in our units as we have an aging population, we have demands in our communities, we have to respond. But I understand, I appreciate your comment also around the cost. that comes with it. So we haven't made a decision yet on the building code. We put the white paper out to get an understanding from people what their thoughts were. My message to our building code department is always this. Yes, we have to reach our climate change targets. Yes, we have to find ways to ensure that anyone, no matter whether they have a disability or not, can get into our buildings and have the ability to access all of the same amenities that all the rest of us do. But can we do it in a way that can balance the needs of the costs as well as get us the outcomes? And so that's the review they're doing now. And so we'll have more to say on that when we've made a decision, but there's no decision that's been made on that. We are looking at other ways in the building code to reduce costs. I will share that I've asked our folks to look at, for example, single stair case building portfolios to find ways, if we can find through fire safety, to still have the fire safety, but also reduce the costs, make sure that we get most out of the footprint that's approved. So we're looking at a whole host of measures in the code to bring the cost efficiency in. Sorry, that was a long answer.
Okay.
So I'm going to just ask for the next person to go to the microphone. Sorry, Sharon.
Yeah.
The minister will be available after the event. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Lauren Simpson. I am your housing advocate. I want to know about the housing, like affordable, inclusive, accessible.
Yeah.
I was trying to fight for single moms or families like disparity. We have no place to live.
I appreciate your question. First off, you're amazing. I've seen the video that you have. I have to say, yeah, you're absolutely amazing. And I do appreciate your question. And the truth is, we need to build a lot more affordable housing for folks. We have this. I mean, the point in time counts, as the mayor highlighted, has shown that coming out of the pandemic, we have a lot of people that are struggling in our communities, and so it's our responsibility not only to build the housing for folks that are on the high end of the market, but for anyone that's struggling. And so, this is where I'll give the mayor a lot of kudos, because from the first meeting we had when she became the mayor to pretty much every meeting we have, we talk about affordable housing, we talk about social housing, we talk about supportive housing, the different streams of housing, because people don't move from one end to the other. It's a continuum, it moves back and forth. And so I agree with the mayor that you need strong community partners on the ground, but that's why we're investing $7.3 billion into affordable housing. And we have a fund that's open right now for not-for-profits that want to apply for housing, and see if the mayor wants to make comments.
Well, I think the city of Surrey is ready to move, and to move fast on Harmony. And Lauren, the work you've done has just been absolutely incredible. So we're going to do everything in our power to make sure that Harmony gets its shovel in the ground in March. That's what Doug told me, and it is going to happen. It must happen. It was an absolute disgrace that it was turned down when it was. It was shameful. And so we're going to make sure that we support everything we can to get that project back up and running. And for every other really important social housing and below market housing we can do, we will. Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks, Lauren.
Thank you. And I will show one more. I can't wait anymore. We are doing part 2 of Lauren's story.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm aware of that. Thank you. Good plug.
Hello, everybody. Tori Jacobson, Director of Fraser Valley Real Estate Board and Chair of the Stakeholder and Government Relations Committee. We're proud to work with the Surrey Board of Trade on agenda items like this, and obviously majority of you here in the audience are developer friends. We're all in this together. Dr. Newhouse, glad to see you as part of the panel. I think we always communicate to our clients that we're not just selling homes, we're selling communities, and it's all part of the process. Something I wanted to bring to your attention, all of you in the room actually, and particularly you, Minister, because I know you and I have had this conversation. We just recently got back from political action days in Ottawa, where we met with our elected officials in the federal government, and it was brought to my attention and my colleagues that were in a meeting with a particular member of government that we're all aware of the immigration numbers, and I'm aware of all of the struggles that you have as developers and city officials finding a labor force to build the houses and communities that we need. And the Minister of Immigration was questioned on the immigration numbers, and did they have metrics as to who the individuals were that were coming into the country, particularly the workforce that's needed to build the homes that you need to house your employees for your businesses and to build those communities we're talking about. And the answer was emphatically no, we have no idea who's coming in. So we'll be raising this issue with Ministers Mercier and Baines as they're elected officials within our Fraser Valley riding, but thought I would mention that to each of you and to you, Minister, in your conversations on the federal level, because I know you and I have discussed this, that we need people to build the homes, and the government that's mandating the immigration doesn't even know what workforce is coming in or the ability to fast track them because they're just letting numbers in and not focus. So I thought that would be relevant information for all of you. And Anita, thanks for everything that you do as always. Have a great day, guys.
Thank you. No, I appreciate it. First, I'll say that we absolutely need immigration, and I think the comment was made earlier as well. If you're not Indigenous or First Nations, we're all a product of immigration, and it's vitally important that we continue to welcome people here. But what I always, when I first became the housing minister, I was advocating to the federal government to tie immigration targets to housing starts, to affordable housing. And the reason why was not because I didn't want the immigration. It was to ensure that we're planning and coordinating all the way through. Because it's a challenge for people that live here, but it's also a challenge for those we welcome here. I mean, we've had a history in this country where we welcome new immigrants and we say to them, hey, by the way, you're welcome here. We're going to give you points because of your experience in your life and your skills that you have and the knowledge you have. And when they get here, we say, oh, you can't use that. And now we say you can't use that, and at the same time, we're saying, oh, by the way, there's no housing. It's just not it's not a fair process to set up. The reform that we announced last week is a major step forward, which removes the Canadian experience, the barrier that puts it away for a lot of immigrants to come here. It removes a major barrier for people who bring good lived experience and knowledge to this country to be able to, for them to use it and better their lives and better their families. But we also now need to make sure the housing is available for people. We have within the province a provincial nominee program, which gives us 9,000 spots. It's a small number. We use it a lot for tech workers and healthcare workers. We've asked them to give us 14,000 so that we can create a new stream just for construction and trades. I'm hopeful that they respond to that. But again, we have to be pro-immigration. We need people, but we have to do both at the same time.
Final question.
Hi, thank you. I have a question for the mayor. My name is Adam Payton. I'm with Thrive Electrify. We provide sustainable electrical solutions for businesses and residences. Excuse me. As the ministers previously noted, BC has the biggest uptake of electric vehicles in North America, and I know that the province, has plans in motion to increase to build out the infrastructure for charging, and I'm curious what the city is doing to do the same.
The city of Surrey has been really at the forefront of electrical chargers for all over the city, certainly at all of our major centers, all of our community centers, all of the facilities that are Surrey, and we've been increasing those regularly. So absolutely, we're working hard at that and making sure that electric vehicles are a big part of the future, especially of Surrey.
Thank you very much.
So I'm going to ask each of you just to provide brief summary comments. And Troy, I want you to also reference the innovative dialogue that we've been having with Surrey schools to build school infrastructure within developments, because we need to think innovatively around school infrastructure. But Minister, we'll begin with you.
Well, first I want to thank the folks on the panel with me here, because there's some interesting tidbits that I think were reinforced to me. First, I think it was a good message around how to build relationships with Indigenous partners, and it sounds simple, and it is simple. pick up a phone, try to learn about the nation where you're working. Try to adopt the design pieces, but try to build meaningful relationships with folks within our community. It goes a long way. I want to thank Dr. Newhouse for her comments about healthy communities. We want healthy communities. We want healthy communities, we want vibrant communities, we want the infrastructure, we want the schools, we want the hospitals, but it's not one or the other. We have to do both at the same time. We can't say, we'll do this when that comes. We have to do all these things at the same time. And I felt like you were reading my speech. You and I were saying the same thing. And so we're going to be certainly aligning. And, all the comments that were made from the panelists were, I think very constructive and obviously important for us as we move forward. Last thing I want to say is thank you to Anita and the entire team, the Surrey Board of Trade, for creating this environment for us to have this type of exchange. And thank you to the sponsors, because as Anita will say, I'm sure, this can't be done without the sponsors stepping up and helping make this happen. And I also saw Councillor Alford. I earlier said no other councillors were here. I apologize. I see him in the back. Nice to see you. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Mayor.
Well, thanks. And as always, Anita, it's always just a pleasure to be here, and I thank the Surrey Board of Trade for all the absolutely fantastic work you do for our city. I think one thing I don't think we got to chat too much about was around international students and the challenges for international students in the housing there. It's absolutely at a crisis in our city, and something that I think everyone is worried about, and certainly something that we need to work with our provincial and federal partners on, because the question that came out with regards to immigration, that's a really big one. Surrey, most people that immigrate to this city, we have the largest percentage of all the new immigrants and refugees that come to British Columbia come to Surrey. So that's our challenge and our opportunity, and we need to figure some of this out, because we're seeing people that are just desperately under housed, and that is not what we want to see. That is not who we are as a city. Every single soul matters. I want to thank, as Minister Kahlon said, I absolutely thank the other people that are here, because likewise I learned a lot from them, and I learned a lot from the questions that came to us. And thank you for having me, Anita.
Thank you very much. Mark.
Thanks, Anita. I think one of the things I heard quite a bit amongst the panel and in the questions and in the responses to those questions is that there needs to be a lot of coordination. There needs to be a lot of dialogue, communication, agreement between the three levels of government, actually four when you consider Metro Vancouver and First Nations, and the private sector, not-for-profit, even the financial sector, insurance, appraisal, all these different sectors that touch the housing market. There needs to be better communication, better collaboration. And I think, the Real Estate Association has been advocating on both the national level, federal level, and at provincial level for a housing roundtable that brings the key players together so that we can say, okay, here's the problem, here's what we need to do, what are the solutions, what are the challenges, and how can we all work together better? Because we see this all the time. We see one level of government announcing a policy, another level of government announcing a different policy, and they don't seem to quite mesh together. We think that we could do a much better job by treating a crisis like a crisis and trying to bring everyone together for a common objective.
Thank you. Emily.
Yes, I'd like to also thank the Board of Trade and Anita. It was such a pleasure to be here, and I also learned a lot. It's great to be in this kind of a forum where I hear from so many different voices. I'd like to reflect on some of the questions that I heard. Sometimes there are a lot of costs, challenges, and coordination in planning for health. And what I would say is that I 100% agree that partnership is so essential. Sometimes cutting through the noise of what's really important and crucial for planning healthy communities can be challenging. And so I really think that partnering with folks in health, partnering with our nonprofits can really help us bring some clarity in terms of what's needed to support the health of our communities. The other thing I'll highlight is that I think it's really important to be data informed. So we do have lots of health data that we can share on health outcomes, evidence from the scientific literature, but also demographic data. I think that's really important to understanding what things we need and what things can wait. Investing in design that promotes health is well worth it. It pays dividends down the road, even if the costs are up front. So with that, I'd like to thank the room and pass it on to my colleague.
Yeah, it was an extreme pleasure to be here, again, with all of the speakers. Thanks to the Surrey Board of Trade, Anita. Thanks to all of the sponsors for the opportunity just to discuss opportunities within both Surrey and opportunities with First Nations. Elaborating more on the school idea that we had worked on previously with the province. In our development application for our Fleetwood, we were looking at proposing an urban primary school, so kindergarten through grade 3, sorry. Unfortunately, it didn't meet provincial requirements. We had met with the school board trying to advance that as part of our initial application. We thought it would be good to help to alleviate the school issues that a lot of the city is facing right now with there not being enough spaces for children. We're working collaboratively with the Surrey Board of Trade and with the province right now discussing trying to re-implement this in future projects. A project that we're working on right now near our Fleetwood application. We have another Fleetwood application that we've started recent work on. We're seeing if we can implement that again or kind of reinvigorate that with the school board and with the province. That Anita has really helped us to push this along in her capacity. And then also, just my comments that I reflected earlier in regards to working with the city. It's everything, everybody can always make the comment, things can go faster, things can go smoother. Things can be easier for the development community. Costs are escalating, interest rates are increasing, and there's a lot of factors that are having a really negative impact on the real estate market, as many of us as developers are facing in the room. But again, there's bright spots. I'd given examples of working in Vancouver versus working in Surrey, and we're very happy to work in Surrey. We're grateful to work in Surrey. And the city continues to offer avenues for dialogue and discussion to try to improve the process or enhance the process. Again, the Surrey Board of Trade, thanks again for the opportunity to have this dialogue and this continued feedback with the city. It's not just us having conversations and they're not being implemented. The city is trying to make efforts to do so. And we're really happy to be working here. And again, takeaways from this event have been just reducing red tape, opportunities to partner, opportunities to work together, and creating healthy, livable, sustainable communities. So thank you very much.
Everyone, a round of applause for our panel. Thank you so much to our co-presenting sponsor, Unity, our lunch sponsor, the BM Group of Companies, our supporting sponsors, Fortis BC, the TN Share Group of Companies, and our community sponsor, East to West Financial Corporation. Everyone, there is 2 more months left of 2023, and it's a busy time in Surrey. Check us out at businessinsurrey.com for many amazing programs and services. Make it a great business day. Thank you.